One of the most important skills you can have as a singer is singing on pitch. So if you can't sing on pitch, what can you do? Today, I want to share with you some common problem areas that tend to plague beginners when it comes to singing on pitch. And then I'll also share with you some exercises, some ideas that I use in my private lessons to fix this. Now, real quick, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Ivan. I'm a voice teacher who works with students all around the world over Zoom. And on this channel, my goal is to make learning how to sing as simple and as easy as possible. So if that's up your lane, consider subscribing wherever you're joining me from. If you'd like to work with me, links are down in the description. And last but not least, if you want to inspire our next episode, drop down into the comments below what you want me to talk about next. Anyway, let's dive in. Now, the first thing here is let's make sure we're actually chasing the right problem. Are you actually even singing off pitch? Now, what I mean by this is I've had many instances where a student would come in and they'll tell me, hey, Ivan, I don't feel like I'm singing on pitch. I've always kind of struggled with hitting the notes. But when I would test them and I get them to sing, for the most part, their pitch turns out to be fine. They simply just didn't like their sound. It sounded, flat to them, or maybe it sounded like it was a bit like speaking. So really important to figure this out before going down this whole rabbit hole of trying to fix your pitch. Now, a good way to check is just getting a second ear. Posting on Reddit is a great place to do it anonymously. If you're wanting to take your singing to the next level anyway, book in a trial lesson with me. Having a trained ear can make a huge difference too. With that out of the way, if you're actually off pitch, let's break it down into some of the common problem areas. Common problem area number one, you're mistaking the timbre, or some of you guys in the States will call it timbre, instead of the actual pitch. Now, what do I mean by this? Think of it like this. Say if you had a guitar, you had a piano, and you had a singer, and they were all singing or playing the exact same note. Why is it that they sound different? Now, the reason why is you can break the sound that you hear into different qualities. The first one being the actual pitch, the note. If some of you who are a bit more technical, the fundamental frequency in that sound. Now, the other part of it is the timbre, the quality, the texture of that sound. Now, I find often when people are struggling to hit the note correctly, sometimes it's because we're confusing these two things. We hear a very kind of bright, we hear very twangy, we hear very kind of whiny kind of timbre, and we associate that with a higher pitch. But in reality, they're not really the same thing. So if this is you, how do we fix this? One of the favorite exercises I love getting my students to do is simply going to a digital piano or a virtual piano, and you basically play the exact same note, but you change the instrument. And the purpose of this is to start to get your voice to hear what is different and what is common. If you don't have access to a digital piano, that's okay. I'll also drop one into the description so you can try this out. Now, bonus points if you can try to match that pitch even as you're changing to different instruments. No, no, no. No, no, no. No, no, no. Common problem area number two. Your vocal folds are simply too clumsy. What people don't realize is that there is a mechanism involved in pitch change. It isn't something that just magically happens. Literally what happens is when the voice is changing pitch, the vocal folds, which is in your Adam's apple, they get stretched and they thin out, almost like a rubber band. And this is what allows you to change pitch. But because these movements are quite, precise, it's also hard for us to kind of see, what's happening with the vocal folds. When we don't have good intuitive control of these vocal folds, learning to sing on pitch can be difficult. And so if you feel like this is you, that is okay. Learning how to control these muscles, the stretch of the vocal folds, is a big part of learning how to develop technique. If anything, most singers will struggle with this because if high notes is a challenge for you, this means there's still some work that we can do to better feel this kind of stretch, to better feel this kind of thinning out of the vocal folds, and hence learn how to adjust pitch. Now, as you can see, this is a big topic in itself. So I'm not going to dive into the nitty-gritty details. What I'd love for you to do, I want you to remember or write this down. Episode 129. isolating the stretch. After this episode, I want you to go and check that out if this is of interest. This is where I talk about this topic more in depth. Common problem area number 3. Finding the right complexity. And this is where I'll hear from people, I'll hear from students, hey Ivan, I can match, notes in a scale perfectly. But for some reason, when I go to a song or maybe when I'm singing karaoke, I just can't seem to do it well there. Now, this is because a song is much more complex than a scale. You have to remember the words, you have to remember the timing, you need to kind of remember the emotions, like how we're going to deliver, right? So there's a lot more layers of complexity here. So once again, how can we improve this? Ultimately, this is where I think it's important to find the right level of complexity. Something that's slightly challenging, something that slightly challenges your skill set, but not too hard where it feels impossible, but also not so easy where you're not really learning anything at all. Now, some ideas here is number 1, you can just slow down the song. Slow down the song until you can start to really figure out the pitch. On YouTube, I know you can set the speed of the song or the video to 0.5 or 0.75 speed. This can be a really good idea. Another thing you can try to do is just simply swap out the words for like a mum or a no and just see if you can sing through that song. This is going to allow you to focus more on the pitch, and it also allows you to focus more on the timing as opposed to thinking about the words. No, 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 no. So then you can bring back in the lyrics. 你说老师是你最爱的颜色，你说如果没有爱，那又如何？怎么了？你怎么了？ Now, last but not least, if maybe the song feels a bit too high and maybe you're just kind of falling flat because the note is too high for you, just changing the key. That is another way to kind of reduce the complexity so you can get a hang of things before you challenge the original key again. Anyway, that is all. If you found this episode useful, please, share this episode or leave this a 5-star if you're listening here from the podcast. This really, really helps grow the podcast and it means the world to me as well. If you'd like to work with me, links are down in the description below as well. Anyway, take care.